This week on Dance of Joy, we talk about soggy cookies, smoking engines, and sticky Garfields. All that and more as we watch Season 4, Episode 18 of our favorite 80s hit sitcom, Perfect Strangers. Hello and welcome to Dance of Joy, a Perfect Strangers rewatch podcast. I am your friendly neighborhood cousin, Imran. Joining me is your friendly neighborhood sister, Sophia, and my sister. What's up, Sophia?
Hello. I'm so happy to be here. Guess what? I'm late to the game, but I just got an air fryer.
Oh, love the air fryer.
But I was late because I was bogged down. I was reading all these reviews. I was trying to get just the right model. It got very overwhelming. If only there was some kind of system I could use.
Some kind of air fryer
rating system.
I believe that's called Amazon Stars.
To let me know which one is the best air fryer. But I finally just chose one, and I'm happy with it so far. I hope it lasts.
Was there a spreadsheet involved?
There was.
Okay,
there might have been a spreadsheet involved.
Perfect.
Yes.
That's perfect because we have a similar system debuting in this week's episode of Perfect Strangers. Of course, we're at Season 4, Episode 18. This one titled Car Wars.
Car Wars? Star Wars?
Makes me think it's Star Wars.
Star Wars.
It's got to be. That's a play on Star Wars, right? What else?
Gotta be, yeah.
There wasn't an actual car war.
No, it's just
Car
about
Wars.
cars. Well, was it about a war? I don't think so, because I read the TV guide description, which says Balky doesn't look forward to the task of buying a car, but Larry insists that the Appleton used car rating system
There we go.
will guarantee Balky the trouble-free car of his dreams.
You think Larry has a air fryer rating system?
Probably.
Appleton best air fryer rating system.
Yes.
And that's, of course, Larry Appleton, played by Mark Lindbaker, and Bronson Pinchot playing Balky Bartolomeusz. And also some cameo spots by Belita Moreno as Lydia Markham and Jo Marie Payton France.
Of course.
As Harriet.
Where we have
Winslow.
Lydia, we have Harriet.
They come in pairs.
Yes.
We have a quartet, not a normal quartet. It's a different quartet.
This episode aired on March 17th, 1989. And of course, Perfect Strangers is now streaming for free on Amazon Freevee, which was formerly IMDb TV. You just get one little commercial break in the middle, but everything is free otherwise. An excellent way to enjoy Perfect Strangers. Okay, Act 1. Here we go. Act 1 of Car Wars. The first Car War.
Car Wars.
Car War 1.
Dude, I like the sequel. There's a whole trilogy. 9 of them.
Return of the Mepiat Jedi.
Oh my God, Balky as a Jedi? Now we've just spun off into a whole different thing. No, wow.
Balky would be Yoda, clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Larry would be who? Anakin? Obi-Wan? I don't know.
All right. Car Wars 1, Act 1. We are in the apartment, and we open with an old gag that we've seen before, but not for a while. I feel like they tried to make this a recurring gag in the earlier seasons. But Larry is sitting at the kitchen counter, and he's got like a mug of, I don't know, tea or milk or something, and a cookie. And he's dipping the cookie.
He's dunking the
cookie in the cup, and he's
cooking the duck.
And he lifts it up, and he's about to take a bite out of it, and the soggy half of the cookie falls into the water, and he gives up, frustrated. And we've seen this before.
Yeah, it's relatable.
It's relatable. In life and on the show.
Half a second too long, Larry.
Yeah, how do you, why doesn't he have an Appleton cookie dunking system?
Oh my God, yes, he should have his watch up. We'll see how.
Exact time to dunk a cookie in milk. Okay, so he gets frustrated. It's a funny little gag. And funny because we remember it from before as well. And then here's the grand entrance. Balky, very excited, runs into the apartment, and he's got this
cousin,
I did it. And he's got this Meposian style sack.
Oh yeah, it's got tassels and things stitched to it.
It's very bedazzled and tassel-y. And he goes, I did it. I cashed my paycheck. I withdrew all my savings. I recycled our aluminum cans. And I have enough money to buy a car.
Ooh.
So here we go. First line of the show sets up
savings, yeah.
Sets up the premise. Very efficient. Balky wants to buy a car. and he slams this bag. He's so happy, and Larry congratulates him, and he goes, "Come on, let's go buy me a car right now." And he's on the other side of the kitchen counter from
Larry and Balky are at opposite sides of the counter.
Yeah, and immediately or very early, we have some great physical comedy as well. Balky grabs Larry by the wrist over the counter and pulls him over the counter. And Larry, how to even describe this?
Larry is extended with his thighs on the counter and nothing else, and he's pushing against
He's
Balky.
horizontal now.
Holding himself up. That is amazing.
And Bronson Pinchot, he's like holding him up.
Core and upper body strength, right? So
he's stiff as a board.
He's stiff as a board, horizontal, with his legs on the counter, his body in the air, and being supported by Bronson Pinchot.
And they continue the conversation in this position for quite a while.
Yes, while he's just hanging in the air.
And Larry, very, as if he didn't even break a conversation, he's just calmly continues the conversation. You can't just go out and buy a car. He says, you have to do research. You've got to read consumer reports. You've got to, evaluate the models you're interested in.
You got to check around.
You got to shop around the various dealers.
Of course, Larry is going to be all anal retentive about this, right?
And he's saying all this while he's horizontal.
Still in the air, horizontal.
And then Balky finds no. And then Balky steps in a little bit, grabs Larry from under his arms and bear hugs him and
pulls the rest of him
to his feet. Over the counter completely to standing up and down. Again, Marklyn Baker has this amazing ability when they do this kind of pair physical comedy to just go stiff.
Yeah.
So that it works for the choreography.
I mean, the core strength on this man at his age must be
really
incredible.
Funny. Wow, he was in his 20s, so.
Yeah. No, he's working out. But Balky, he says no, picks up, he goes, I'm just going to go right down to Anas Ahmed's used car caravan.
Used car caravan. And he explains it's the guy on television who says he'll kiss a camel to sell a car.
So I can just picture this commercial. White
very
dude
cliche,
dressed in a turban, very, stereotype Arab with a camel, and just crazy car salesman.
And so Larry sits Balky down and tells him this hard truth. He says, if you try to buy a car from Anas Ahmed, he'll eat you alive. And Balky says, oh, he's a cannibal?
That's a good line. Poor literal Balky. Yeah.
Poor literal Balky. Sweet, sweet Balky. And that's not what Larry's saying. What Larry's trying to say is that he's not honest. He isn't even Ahmed. His real name is Bert Williams, and he probably stole that camel he kisses.
I love it. He goes, he's not honest, and it's not even Ahmed.
And he says, and Balky's just shocked about why Anas Ahmed would be someone who's lying about being Anas Ahmed. And Larry explains that it's to make money. And then he goes into Larry-splaining mode, and this is the premise of the rest of this episode. And he explains that his Father Appleton, had a system for finding reliable cars, and it was called the Appleton Used Car Rating System.
So this isn't the first time Larry's brought up a system from his father that he uses it doesn't really like, but he'll use it anyways.
Larry was a very impressionable child. His parents had a large influence on him.
Bad lessons have stuck with him his whole life.
Yes.
Pretty much. And so Larry goes, this is what, I'm sure this is exactly what you need. And Balky says, well, cousin, I'm sure your father was wise behind his ears, but I don't think I need his system.
He means wise beyond his years.
His years, but wise behind his ears.
Yeah.
He's wise back there.
I like that.
Yeah, and then he does a line that we've heard before. He goes, this maybe it didn't just fall off the turnip train. We've heard that line before. But then Larry does this thing. He's like, look, I'm sure you don't need this, but let's suppose you buy a car without the Appleton used car rating system. Let's look into the future. We've seen him do this before. This is a clue that an Appleton snow job is about to happen right in front of our eyes.
Yes.
And they look off into the future. He's like, let's look into the future. Look, he goes, he paints the picture. He says it's a dark and stormy night. I wake up with pains. And Balky's like, cousin, where does it hurt? And then Larry says, I think it's my appendix. And he's like, Balky, you've got to get me to the hospital. And Balky goes, cousin, no problem. I'll drive you in my new car. And Larry goes, oh, good. Good. But when we get in your car, Balky, it won't start. You got to get me to the hospital. And then Balky just freaks out. He goes, cousin, I'm trying. He goes, help, help. He's just screaming, help. And then Larry just goes, but it's 2 a.m. There's no one around. Oops, my appendix just burst. I'm dead.
Oh.
And all because you would have used the Appleton used car rating system and bought a bad car.
And this moves Balky, of course, because Larry knows how to manipulate Balky.
Great Appleton snow
Balky
job
says,
right here.
oh, cousin, I don't want your death on my head and shoulders.
That's another great line because, it's I don't want your death on my hands.
On my hands or on my shoulders.
And then I just think of the dandruff shampoo, head and shoulders. I don't know why. I don't know if that was the joke.
You carry a weight on your shoulders.
Oh, carrying the guilt on my shoulders.
So I don't want your death on my head and shoulders.
Head and shoulders.
Yeah.
And also, it's a great dandruff shampoo.
Yes.
All ties in.
So he says, fine, give me the system, the Appleton used car rating system. And he says, what do I do? And Larry says, first, give me all your money. And he goes, who are you kidding?
Yeah, and he grabs his bag.
His little sack.
His Maposian sack.
But then Larry goes, give me your money. And he convinces him to give him the money. And he says he's going to use the Appleton system to get Balky the right car at the right price.
All right. We'll see how your system works there, Larry Appleton.
And so Balky's rolling with it, and he goes, okay, well, after you pick my car, can I get a personalized license plate? And Larry's like, sure. And he says, I want one that says, make the world a better place by being nice to everyone you meet. And he goes, do you think that one's taken?
And Larry goes, we'll have to check because it's way too long, obviously.
And then Balky says his second choice is eat my rust, which is...
That was that pun. That was a common pun. Because the pun is eat my dust. But you're also driving a crappy car. I think there was a lot of bumper stickers that said eat my rust.
Oh, yeah?
It was like 80s bumper sticker. That's definitely an 80s bumper sticker. So we transitioned. Some time has passed. We're now at work in the basement of the Chronicle. And Larry's at his desk. And he's got piles of... Man, how do you explain this? Back in the day... There was something called a dot matrix printer that printed on very wide sheets that was accordion folded and it had holes
perforated
along the side and perforated. So he has stacks of these printouts all around him.
Yes. And
it was the printer that would go. That's what
very loud. We had one in our house. Yeah, when we were in school, it was very loud to print out papers for school and stuff.
The early printers, you had to buy, remember, the paper that with the holes on the side and accordion perforated.
And feed them into...
And you had to physically roll it in there so it would go. Those things were crazy. They were huge.
I don't know if anyone listening to us, younger people, even understand what we're describing
Look
right now.
Look it up. Dot matrix printers.
Okay, so to help us, the audience, know what we're looking at, we have Lydia and Harriet enter the scene. Harriet is like calling Lydia. She's like, you got to see this. You got to see this. So, and she says to Larry, I just want Lydia to watch you for a while. And Larry says, oh, so Harriet's told you about the Appleton used car rating system. And he explains that it was developed by his dad to make sure all the Appleton kids bought used cars that would run trouble-free for years. And so then he explains what they're looking at. And he says, he points at this pile of printout. He says, this is a computer printout of every used car for sale in the Chicagoland area. And there are 14,227.
He's a printout of 14,000 cars that he's got to go through now.
Yeah. And then I thought it was funny that he's talking about computer printouts, but we don't see a computer anywhere in this.
No, they had a typewriter that was on wheels in the last episode.
Communal printer somewhere in the computer room.
I love this line because Larry goes, he says 14,275. He goes, before computers, it used to take my dad forever to do this. He started shopping for my first car when I was 12 years old, which is hilarious. It's like how long did it take to print out all those cars?
Yeah, on that dot matrix. Yeah. So then he continues, but he plans to narrow this number down. How? Well, using another computer program, again, with some computer that exists somewhere that we don't see. He has eliminated all the trucks, four-wheel drive vehicles, RVs, and everything costing more than $2,500. What? And Lydia keeps trying to ask questions, but Larry keeps talking over her. And he says, then The cars themselves are rated according to such things as mileage, previous service record, coefficient of drag, whatever
Coefficient
that
of drag.
means.
That's like wind air speed.
Yeah, what is
like
coefficient
how
of drag?
aerodynamic the car is? Okay.
And Lydia tries to interrupt with a question again, and Larry keeps talking. And then the ratings are factored against the sales prices of the cars, which reduces the list even further down to the one car in Chicago most likely to give Balky worry-free driving well into the next century.
Wow. That's a lot of work that went into this.
Which the next century is only like 11 years away
that's a long
at that
time.
point. But yeah,
It's like,
true,
like,
for a car.
so this whole time, Harriet just has this look on her face like, you see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And Lydia looks at him and she just goes, were you a bedwetter? And he's like, I'm just trying to help Balky. And Harriet goes, well, what if your computer doesn't find a car Balky likes? And Larry doesn't understand this question. He's like, what does like have to do with it? He's like, I didn't like the car my dad bought me, but it's still running.
Yeah.
And then Harriet goes to Lydia, what do you think? And Lydia's like, you're absolutely right. He's a sick man. And she pats him on the shoulder.
So this is the first time we see Harriet and Lydia
They're not fighting. They're-
not roasting
yes.
each other, but they teamed up to roast
Yes,
Larry.
they've joined forces to see this sociopath going through used cars.
But it was also they provide a useful tool to explain to the audience what's happening.
That's true.
Yeah.
His like crazy process.
Yeah. So they leave, and then Balky runs in from the parking garage area, and again he's super excited. And
Very
cousin,
excited.
I found it! I found the car of my dreams, and it's right there in the parking garage.
That's lucky.
And he goes, come on! He goes, come on! And he runs like very heavy-footed over to Larry, and he grabs him and like around the middle, bear hugs him, and tries to take him to the garage. And Larry just stands firm and doesn't
first he runs
budge.
in, then he runs out, and then he runs back in again because Larry didn't follow him.
Yeah.
And he tries to pull at him, and Larry's not budging.
And it's this very like childlike, flat-footed, heavy run.
Yes, it's like stomp, stomp,
Excited,
stomp,
yeah.
stomp, stomp. And Larry's like, look, Balky, what makes this the car of your dreams? He's trying to calm Balky down.
And Balky goes, it's red.
He's trying to get him to go into the garage. He's running
Come
back and forth.
on.
He's like, cousin, you can't see it from here. As he almost is about to pick him up.
Yeah.
And Larry's like, Balky, you need good reasons to buy a car, right? Let's figure this out. He picks up a notepad and a pencil. He goes, let's just make a list of your reasons. And Balky goes, list this? He goes, well, and clearly Balky was not ready for this, and he's making things up. He's like, it's got those little mud flaps that keep the mud from getting up on the fender. And Larry just holds the pencil in the air on the pen, doesn't write anything, and then just goes, And then Balky's trying to make up. He's like, oh, it's got a little aerial at an angle, so you feel like you're driving fast all the time. And then Larry doesn't write anything down. He's like, And then Balky's oh, this is what sold me. It's got one of those Garfields stuck to the window. And then he goes, shunk, and he pretends he's the Garfield with his face. If you look at he contorts his face, his jaw, like he smashed on the window.
Do we have to explain that? Do these things still exist for cars? These car decorations with suction cups?
Do you see them anymore?
I haven't seen them.
I see a lot of the bobblehead things that are people's cars. So this is also the same time you had the baby on board sign. Mm-hmm. Remember how popular that was? Everybody had baby on board. But what also was popular was Garfield, the comic strip created by Jim Davis. Everybody must know Garfield. I don't even know if people know Garfield anymore.
The lasagna-loving cat that hates Mondays.
With Jim, and he's very sarcastic, and Odie is his dog.
Yeah.
So there was a little plush toy with suction cups you put on your window of Garfield.
The suction cups were on
their paws
and the feet of this cartoon cat, and so the face had to go to one side to press against the window.
I absolutely remember these things.
Yeah.
That everybody. I thought we might have had one too in one of the old cars.
Probably.
Because everybody had. Larry is clearly not impressed with any of this. He's like, I thought that car might catch your eye. I ran it through the Appleton rating system, and it did not measure up. And Balky he tells Larry he thought buying a car would be fun. Larry goes, buying a car is not supposed to be fun. Here we have Larry taking the fun out of everything again.
Yes.
He says the fun comes years from now when you look back and you see you were a good consumer. And then then Balky has a great line here.
Balky just looks at Larry like in disbelief, and then he goes, "You weren't breastfed, were you?"
So now we have the two comments from Lydia about bedwetting and breastfeeding. Like, I love how they're just making cracks about his upbringing.
Very
and
Freudian problems. Yeah.
But this is what you get with this crazy system.
Yeah.
And Larry just goes, years from now, you'll thank me. And I think this was an ad-lib line because as Bronson Pinchot walks away, kind of under his breath, he goes, years from now, I'll buy a red car. And I was like, and then he smirks.
Yeah.
Bronson is smirking a lot throughout this episode. He's cracking up and trying not to crack up.
Because it's so funny. There's some really great physical comedy. I saw him try. Yeah. He like contorts his face when he's trying not to laugh. But it works for the Balky character.
It absolutely works. He doesn't even have to try.
All right. So then we cut to the next scene, and it's sometime later in the same day, and we're at the Chronicle, and we're in the parking garage. We're in level B.
This is the first time we've seen the parking garage.
That's true.
Also, we should mention Bucky's wearing another story shirt this time.
Oh, yes. This whole scene that we just described, it's a really wild, really loud story shirt. It's white. It's got all these different like patches of things.
There's trees on there.
There's trees.
There's people dancing. Yeah, what else is going on? There's people fishing. Oh, he's worn this. Has he worn this one before?
I feel like there's one person like playing bagpipes or something.
That's something like that.
It looks like that. Yeah.
Or is that a lacrosse player?
I think we have seen this shirt before. Yeah. Okay. So a little bit later in the day, we're in the
level B of the Chronicle parking garage.
Larry is leading Balky into the garage, and Balky has his hands over his eyes, and Larry's telling him not to look yet because he's got the surprise for him, and he tells him he has found him the most reliable used car in Chicago, and Balky has his eyes covered. He says, "Cousin, I can't stand it." And we see that there are two cars. There are two cars in this scene in the garage. On one side is a beautiful red shiny red Volkswagen convertible. It's shiny. It's awesome. And on the other side is this like big, clunky, old style sedan with like
from the 60s
with like booth seats. It's enormous. It's like pale green, gross color. But Balky hasn't seen either of these yet. And finally, Larry says, "Okay, open your eyes." And he opens his eyes and he first sees Balky turns to the convertible and Larry turns to the other car.
Larry's looking at the green car. Balky's looking over. And they haven't noticed that they're each not looking at the same car.
Yes. And Balky goes, "Oh, cousin, it's beautiful." And Larry's looking at the clunker and he says, "I think so too." And then Balky runs to the red car and like throws himself like as if to hug the car.
And Larry's like, "Oh no."
Yeah. And Larry tries to stop him. "Oh, Balky." And Balky's already like all over. He's like making love to this car. And he says, "Cousin, you're the best. You're the best." And he hugs him tightly. And he says, "I'm so sorry about those terrible things. I said those terrible things about you."
What did he say to him?
"I mean, never in my wildest dreams." And then he's like, "It's a convertible."
Yeah, he runs to the back and he's jumping up and down and hugging him and jumping.
And then he tries, he's like, "Let's take it for a ride." He opens the driver's side door to try to get in, but Larry stops him. And then he just keeps like hugging on this car and he like rolls, like he hugs the hood and Larry's trying to get him off, but he just like rolls his whole body
over
across
the hood of the car. It's so funny. Just ragdoll. He's just like, I love this car. As Larry rolls him and then picks him up by the shirt.
And Balky was so excited. Larry grabs him by the shirt and pulls him close. He says, "No, this is not your car." And then he points him to the other car and he goes, "This is your car." And Balky just goes, "Oh God."
He was like, "Oh God." So I think you're right. The red is like a Volkswagen Golf. I kind of recognize those cars.
It's very shiny.
The other one, I kind of looked it up, appears to be a 63 Chevy Impala sports sedan.
63.
A 63. So Larry went out and bought a car from 1963 and 1989, which was old in 1989 already.
Yes.
What are you doing, Larry?
And it's big and it's ugly and it's not convenient and it's not shiny.
It's one of those cars that has like the giant steering wheel and the lap seatbelts, if it even has
like
seatbelts.
The booth seating.
Yes, one big seat that had to go up and back.
Yeah.
And so Larry is like, "I knew you'd like it." And he goes, "And thanks to the Appleton system, it's so reliable. You'll be driving this car forever." And Balky goes, that long.
long.
And then Larry's like, what do you say? Let's take it for a spin. He takes the keys out of his pocket, throws it up in the air for Balky to catch it. Balky does not move. The keys just land on the ground. And Larry goes, oh, I know what it's like. I was excited, too, when I got my first car.
Oh, my gosh.
So he's not caught on that Balky is horrified. He's like, don't be shy. He grabs the keys. They get in the car. He puts Balky in the driver's side. He runs around, sits in the car. And Balky just has this weird, forced smile, shocked smile on his face. Like, he's like, I can't believe that this is happening.
Yeah.
And then Balky puts the key in the ignition and turns it on, and the engine starts up right away.
Yeah.
Larry's like, huh? Listen to that engine purr. He goes, that's the sound of the Appleton system at work.
And then we see smoke coming out from under the hood.
Of course we do.
And Balky looks at it. He's shocked, and he's like looking at Larry like, what the heck? And then Larry just kind of stops smiling, and we see more and more smoke until we don't see them anymore through the windshield.
Yeah, the garage is filled with smoke. Great place to end Act 1 and fine mess Larry has got Balky into.
Yes.
Listener, join the conversation. We have an awesome Facebook group. There's a link in the show description. It's called Dance of Joy Podcast Group, where I post episode threads ahead of when we schedule them, so you can watch along. You can leave your comments and observations and meet other listeners and fans of Perfect Strangers, which there are many. And let's make some more.
Let's make some more with Act 2, Car Wars Return of the Car Strike Back.
The Car Strike Back. That's what it is. It's Car Wars 2, the car strikes 2. Back.
Yeah.
Which is what's happening here, because
the Meepiat strikes back.
The Meepiat strikes back. So, yes, the smoke come out of the car. We come back. They're still in the garage. And the hood is up.
It's a couple hours later.
It is later. They've been there for a while, and they've loosened up. They've like taken off the ties. And the hood is up, and Larry's like, okay, Balky, start her up. And you can see Balky in the car. Yeah. Turning the key, and Larry's like, okay, Balky, start her up. And he's turning, and he's like, okay, come on, Balky, start her up. And at this point, Balky just decides to get out of the car and just casually stroll around Larry to his other side, while Larry's just like, Balky, and he turns and goes, he goes, what are you doing here? Balky goes, just hanging out. I'm just hanging out.
And so, of course, Balky tells him, I tried to start the car, nothing happened. And Larry's like, well, I'm sure it's just a simple problem. And Balky says, well, I have a simple solution. We take this thing back and get another one.
Oh, my God.
Possibly a red one.
Yes, that's a good solution. But Larry's, so he's so smug, right? His Appleton rating car system is the best. He goes, Balky, there's nothing wrong with this car. And Balky goes, well, there's one thing wrong with it. It won't start.
I wonder how Larry even brought the car to the garage. It had to have started. At
some point, it drove and to get it there. Yes. Yeah. And why would you park it next to the shiny red car?
I don't know.
Larry Appleton, you idiot.
Yes. Larry says, I'm sure it's just a little thing because it passed the Appleton system with flying colors. And Balky says, well, maybe the Appleton system should take a flying leap.
And Larry goes, like he's offended. He's like, how dare you?
Yeah.
And Balky's like, I'm sorry. It just slipped out. I didn't mean to say that.
And Larry tells Balky to have a little faith, because even the Appleton kids used to doubt their dad's system.
I can see why.
But it never let them down. And so Larry's determined to find the problem and fix it. And he asked Balky to give him a hand. He says, problem seems to be with the electrical system. So let's check the battery to see if it's still delivering.
Okay, some great physical comedy and a science lesson coming up here.
This physical comedy was so funny.
So the cousins walk around to the other side of the car. They have their back to the audience, right? You hear Larry goes, okay, grab a screwdriver. You can hear the audience at this point go, oh, my God, right? You can hear them gasp.
Yes.
He goes, grab a screwdriver. All we have to do is touch these screwdrivers to the battery terminals and see if there's any electricity. Does this sound like a good idea?
No,
right away.
I never learned to do this with cars ever.
So at this point, you're holding your breath, right? And they both, with their back turns, they touch the batteries. Nothing happens. And then Balky remembers something because he goes, cousin, It seems that the battery is dead. And he remembers what?
You know, Mr. Wizard once said that electricity won't flow unless there is a complete circuit.
Ah.
I wonder what he meant by that.
I think we're going to find out.
And so they still have their screwdrivers touching the terminals and the battery, and they still have their backs to the audience. And Balky just like places his arm around Larry's back, just like a friendly arm on his shoulder.
Yeah, he just puts his hand on his shoulder.
Which means he has completed the circuit.
Yes, he has.
And the two of them start convulsing and screaming an electrical shock. And then they turn around to face the audience.
At the same time,
while
and they're shaking.
Convulsing. And they're shaking and they're contorting their
so
faces. And
funny.
It is really, really funny.
And then Larry just goes, battery's fine.
And they're still like twitching. Yeah.
But I love that the audience caught on too. I love when the audience catches on to the thing before they anticipate. Yeah. So, okay, Mr. Wizard. Yeah, do you remember Mr. Wizard?
I do not. Tell me about Mr. Wizard.
I vaguely remember Mr. Wizard. I'll tell you why he's important, though. So, Mr. Wizard was the host of a popular children's science series. He taught kids science, right? It ran from 1951 until 1965 by a fellow named Don Herbert. Was Mr. Wizard. Kids loved him. He would show you science. In 1983, they brought the show back, and they brought Don Herbert back. It was on Nickelodeon. It was called Mr. Wizard's World. So kids of this generation would have seen, if they were watching Nickelodeon, you would have seen Mr. Wizard. But he essentially is the guy, like he's the predecessor to Bill Nye the Science Guy, which I think a lot more people know.
Yeah.
I looked up the picture of Mr. Wizard. He's kind of balding. I vaguely remember, I think I caught him watching him on Nickelodeon. Do you remember this guy at all?
Yeah, vaguely. I only remember him in the context of these photos of him standing next to children doing the science.
Look, if we didn't have Mr. Wizard, you'd never get Bill Nye the Science Guy. Yeah. So it's that he was the granddaddy of the science guy on TV. Okay, so the fellas have just been electrocuted, right?
Yeah.
Presumably, they're fine. We transition to the next scene. It is late at night, and you notice... they're wearing different things and there's stuff around.
Okay, so
what is happening
now
here?
They're both wearing like mechanics jumpsuits.
Yes,
like
blue jumpsuits, and they're covered in grease.
Covered in grease, so they've been working for a while. Somehow they've gotten these mechanics outfits.
Okay, not only that,
but when you pan out a little bit, the car is a hot mess. Okay, like. There's
pieces
hood
everywhere.
Is up, the pieces everywhere. Like the back seat is out of the car, and leaning against it. And
another part is on the roof.
Yeah, another part of the back seat is on the roof of the car.
Why would they need to remove the seat to fix this car? There's also like a big red mechanics tool shelf, that they pull out. And you'll see he's got a rolly board. There's a whole mechanic shop there.
Whole mechanic
There's
shop.
quarts of oil you can see on the thing.
Where did they get all this stuff?
How do the car doesn't work? Where did this come from?
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, what is going on? Where did they get all this?
Not important. Unexplained.
Doesn't matter.
They got all this stuff.
They got this stuff there, right?
They have tools. They have oil. They have all this stuff. A rolling thing to go under the car. And so basically it's all set up to let us know that they've been at this for a while.
Yes.
Okay. It's been maybe a day or more.
Larry's pretty much like, I think we're getting somewhere. He thinks they're at a point where everything's fine.
Yeah.
And Bucky goes, well, that's what you said when you stripped the threads on the car burrito.
The car burrito.
And Larry goes, that's carburetor.
And then Balky does this thing where
he looks at his mouth.
He looks at Larry's mouth the second time he says carburetor.
So car burrito is hilarious.
Car burrito.
What is a car burrito?
It's a burrito that you eat in your car.
Or is it a car-sized burrito?
Or is it a burrito made of cars?
Or is it a burrito made of cars? It's one of three things, right? But Larry goes to carburetor, and that was an accident. What, you never made a mistake before? Bucky's like, not of this magnitude.
And then Larry gets a little salty. He's like, Balky, I'm doing this all for you. I found the car for you. I made the deal for you, and I'm trying to fix it for you. And Balky says, you're right. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you.
And then Larry goes, tell you what. You don't like it. You want to help? Why don't you just go home? And Balky's like, cousin, I would love to go whom, but my car don't work.
Dang.
They're getting after each other.
They are getting annoyed with each other for one of the first time. I mean, we've seen them get annoyed with each other, but we haven't seen them both be like this snippy at each other just yet.
And we find out why, because Larry goes, look, we're both tired. We've been working on this all weekend.
All weekend?
Have they just been in the parking garage of the Chronicle all weekend? Did they not leave?
They had to leave to get their jumpsuits and all the mechanics stuff.
They like stop to eat and go to the bathroom? They've just been working on this thing for 2 days? They've been in there for 2 days?
Yes.
But Larry's like, look, let's just work together and fix this car. And Belky agrees. And he goes, well, what can I do to help? And Larry's like, well, for starters, you could pour in this oil. Right?
Here is another very funny physical comedy scene. And so Balky picks up we see that there's many bottles of oil on this mechanic's rack, and he picks up one of them. He's still sort of like pushing Larry's button. He says, we wouldn't have to put new oil in if you hadn't broken the oil filter when you were trying to fix the fuel pump. Huh. And then Larry says, well, the fuel pump wouldn't have been broken if you hadn't hit it with a hammer. Like this. He does the same Balky, And he says, cousin, you told me to hit it with a hammer. And Larry says, tap. I said, tap. Tap it with a hammer. And Balky says a very funny Balkyism here. He says, tap, hit, 8 of one, half a dozen of another.
And Larry's like, just put in the oil. So what's the saying?
The expression is 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Half 12.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, like whatever. 6 and 12.
Same, yeah.
So this is not same. It
8 of one, half a dozen.
But it is as different as tap and hit, really.
Yes,
I guess.
Yes.
8 of one. That's so funny. So now Larry has this dolly. You know the car dollies that you lie on? And you can roll under the car, right? Yeah. So he gets into the front of the car. He's about to get on the dolly, roll underneath. And Balky, he has a can of oil, canister of oil in his hand, but he notices something sitting on the engine. It's like a little valve. Yeah. And he's like, oh, cousin. He's like, when you, and Larry just goes, Balky. He's like, just put in the oil. And Balky's like, but let me ask you something.
Balky, just put in the oil.
He's like, but cousin, let me ask you, when
put in the oil. It's not a big deal. Put in the oil, put in the oil, put in the oil now.
Oh my God, Larry freaks out at this point. And then Balky just goes, okay, nervously. But then he tries one more time. He goes, but let me ask you this real quick. When you put in the oil.
Balky, put in the oil now. At this point, he's already on the dolly under the car, and he's screaming from under the car. And Balky just contorts his face because he's trying not to laugh. And he starts pouring this black car oil into the space where he's supposed to pour it.
He pours the whole bottle, right? He holds it up. He makes sure the last drop is gone.
And then he's
very nervous.
Larry's just hands reach out from underneath the car, and he pushes himself back, rolls himself back out, and his face is just covered.
Oh my God, it's perfect.
In the oil. And then he sits up, and the oil
starts dripping
down his chin. Oh, it's so funny. And the audience is losing it, and he's just holding there for the laughs.
He doesn't crack it. And I believe at this point, Bronson Pinchot is cracking. He's
probably because he's out of the camera.
Yes, and he's like, oh my God. And Larry, his focus is amazing. He just sits there, holds it to beat, and then Balky goes, cousin, was this what you were? And he holds out the valve, and Larry just reaches out his hand, takes it, and he goes, thank you. And then
rolls
slowly
back.
Lays back down, rolls back under, completely covered.
So funny.
With oil. So funny.
That is the kind of scene you don't see in sitcoms these days. It was so funny. And it had to be one of these, like, they had to do it in one take scenes because it was messy.
You can't clean this up. I don't see any other oil on these jumpsuits. I don't know if they had multiple jumpsuits, but.
Okay, so then
is that chocolate syrup? I wonder.
I'm sure it was just some kind of goop. Okay, so then we move to the next scene, and
some time has passed now.
Some time has passed.
And it looks like there's nothing around.
Everything's cleaned up. All the mechanic stuff is gone. The seats are back in the car.
Oh, it is daylight. They do cut to a daylight shot. So it's like the next morning.
Yeah.
They're still in the parking garage. Yes, and he closes the hood. Everything looks great.
Everything's cleaned up. There's no more stuff around. They're wiping their hands on some rags. They're still very dirty. And Larry says, well, Balky, we did it. And Balky says, yep, we took apart everything in my car and put it back together again.
And then Larry just looks over and goes, you have to do that sometimes. To make everything apart. And then I love this line. Balky goes, the amazing thing is we don't have any parts left over.
I feel like that's a callback
From
to the plumbing
episode
scene.
when they
To
had
the plumbing episode.
The one pipe. He goes, where's this go? Trash. No, there's no left. He's like, that's a good sign.
Yes,
that's always a good sign when there's no parts left over.
So Larry suggests that they take the car for a spin, and they get in the car. Balky gets in the driver's seat, Larry in the passenger seat, and Balky hesitantly, tries the ignition, and the car starts. And he's very delighted. He says, cousin, it started. And Larry, very smug Larry, says, chalk up one more for the Appleton system.
And then Balky's like, why don't we just turn it off and call it a victory? He doesn't want to risk it anymore. And Larry's like, no, put it in drive. Put her in drive. And Balky goes, that would be the D. Why is he asking? Didn't he take driver's ed class 2 seasons ago?
I feel like he's just stalling because he doesn't want to drive this.
No, but it's also important that we know that he's putting it in
actually,
D, right?
That's a very good point. That's why they wrote that line in.
So he puts it in D, and Larry just goes, perfect. Balky, you are about to drive your very own car for the first time. This is a moment you'll never forget. And at this point, Balky is excited. He reaches over, he shakes his hand, he goes, thank you. And Larry goes, don't thank me. Thank the Appleton used car rating system. Go ahead, Balky. Step on the gas.
So Balky, and we know the car's in drive.
Yes.
The D, Balky steps on the gas, and the car goes backwards
through a brick wall.
Cinder block wall.
Oh my Lord.
So now there's a big hole in the wall behind them, and they stop.
And then this chain of event things is funny because then the smoke starts coming out from the hood. The hood pops open. The fender falls off. Then
an alarm starts going off.
The car starts working, and the flashlights start going on and off all at the same time as they're sitting through the back of the wall.
The headlights flash on. Yeah.
Wow. That was great. That was fantastic.
And then they look at each other, and Balky just says, cousin, in the Appleton system, exactly when do you admit failure?
I wasn't expecting the car to go backwards.
I wasn't.
There's like a slow-mo shot when it hits the wall.
You're like,
weird. Whoa, this is dramatic.
It was very weird slow-mo shot. It stood out to me because
but it was great because I honestly, you're not expecting that. And it just goes right through the wall. And this is like on a set in front of a live audience. It's pretty good.
They broke that wall, yeah.
Very impressive. I like the set because you see like cinder blocks fall in the background.
They must have done that in one take too, or else
they look real.
Yeah,
I don't think it's a real cinder blocks. Okay, so car through the wall, whatever. Let's just cut. Don't worry about cleaning it up. We'll cut back to the apartment.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what happened after that.
And they both come back to the apartment. They're in their jumpsuits. Are they in their jumpsuits?
No, they're in their normal clothes again. Other
again.
clothes, yes.
And Balky thanks Larry for helping him buy his first car.
Okay, so they just actually bought a car. Okay, we'll find out.
Yeah, so they come back, and he says, thank you for helping me buy my first car. And Larry says, well, actually, it was your second. And Balky says, I don't count the first one. I never actually drove it forward. And then we find out that Honest Ahmed gave him a good deal on a trade-in.
Oh, good Honest Ahmed.
And Balky says, yeah, $150 for a car that only drives backward ain't bad.
And then he says, I'm really happy with the red car I just bought.
He got his red car.
So are we to presume they drove that green car backwards all the way back to Honest Ahmed?
Maybe they had it towed.
Oh, yeah, they could have had it towed.
I don't know.
I think it's funnier to think that they had to drive the car backwards to Ahmed.
Yeah.
Burt Williams, I mean.
And what do they do with the hole in the wall? We never find out. Okay.
So they go sit on the couch, and we hear Larry go, Balky, I owe you an apology, and we hear
lesson time. Music.
It's
back.
It's back. A lot of things are back this episode.
We have lesson time music.
Yes.
Okay. And Larry says that he thought the Appleton system was foolproof, and that's why he couldn't admit that the car was a lemon. And Balky says, no, cousin, it was a sedan.
That's great. Being literal again.
And it was just about the ugliest one I've ever seen in my life. except for that picture you showed me of your first car. And Larry goes, hey, my dad picked that car out. That car was reliable. That car was fuel efficient. That car was ugly.
He finally admitted it to himself.
And here's the lesson. The lesson is really Larry coming to realization. He says, you know something? I hated that car, but I could never tell my dad.
Yeah.
And Balki says that he suggests that first thing in the morning, Larry should call up his papa and get that piece of your mind off your chest.
I love that. That's a smashing of two sayings.
Give him
having a piece of your mind.
Give him a piece of your mind and
getting something off your chest. So you get that piece of your mind off your chest. That's
I like
That's
that.
great.
And Larry says he's right and he will. And then here's the last. That's it for the lesson.
That's the lesson.
Like his realization. The last joke here is, says Balki, tomorrow when we go into work, we don't know anything about that hole in the wall. And then we roll credits.
Listener, check out our TeePublic shop. Before we give you our thoughts on this episode, you need to put on a Dance of Joy t-shirt. You can get it at danceofjoypod.com/shop. But it's not just t-shirts. It's also like magnets, mugs, cell phone cases, travel mugs, all with our awesome logo.
Yes.
So you can show the world that you are a Dance of Joy.
You can get a sticker and put it in your red car.
Yes, you can. Do we have anything for cars? I don't know. You can put anything in the car. Yeah, you can put the sticker on the car. You put the magnet on the outside of the car.
Yes.
Link in the show notes. Really the lesson, like Larry went through this whole thing. Balki got a new car, but Larry also had a big moment where he's coming to grips with how his dad's systems, we've seen it before,
were not great,
and we didn't like him, and but he can't tell his dad, and he can't admit to himself that this is a faulty system.
Really, he never admitted till the end of this episode, even to himself, that he hated that car.
Right.
Even to this day, he believed in the system so much that he wanted to push it onto Balki, and he believed that his car was that his dad got him was like the best, most reliable car. But
like in therapy, this would be a huge breakthrough.
Yeah, huge breakthrough.
Right? You hated that car and you admitted it.
But I couldn't tell my dad.
But he should call his dad and tell him and get that piece of mind off his chest. I wish we got to see the car Balki bought.
Yeah, we don't get to see Balki's red car. And doesn't Larry also drive a red car?
Larry has a cherry red Mustang.
Yeah.
They both are on red cars. I don't know why they need two cars.
And that was the cherry red Mustang the car that his dad bought him?
Okay, so now they have broken continuity.
Yes, because he's already gotten another. We've already been to the used car a lot.
He said that my first car is still running, but he could have left it at home for his siblings. There's 8 of them.
True.
You hand the car down. I think he left that clunker because he hated it. That's why he bought the Mustang. But overall, really great writing, some great dialogue, great delivery, great physical comedy.
Some holes in the story, but they're not important. Like the story moves very fast.
It's very fun. And it had a feeling of like watching a really fun like stage play. Like it made me realize how much fun it must have been live to watch these tapings and see but I don't know, like the whole garage scene felt like a theater, like a play, a really funny play.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, lovely episode. Just needed some singing, and it would have been complete.
And we also never find out like why Balki needs a car, but that's not important. Like the story is just he's excited, he's saved up his money, he's been working, and he wants to get his own car.
Well, and another thing for an immigrant, a big thing from an immigrant, where there's a horse and carriages. You come to America, car. You buy your own car. That's huge.
It's huge.
It's a huge thing.
Yeah.
What did our listeners think of this episode, sister?
Okay, listener, cousin Pam Hitchcock writes, an excellent episode that I don't have much to say about because it's chef kiss emoji. There was great verbal and physical play, many clever Balkiisms and running jokes. We even had an appearance from Lydia and Harriet where they weren't snarky. Well, not to each other, but... And she says, do I dare give this 10 out of 10 Bibi Bobkas? I think so.
A rare perfect score of 10 out of 10 Bibi Bobkas from cousin Pam. I could kind of agree. Like it was all around. It is a well-rounded episode.
Yeah.
Lots of fun.
Cousin John Adama writes, The Honest Ahmed gimmick may have been a little outdated when the show was new. Today, it's a bit much. Agreed.
Right. It's like even then it was
very
the little.
hacky,
I
yeah.
mean, again, all the bad guys were like Arab terrorists.
Yeah, still are,
and they
yep.
still are.
Cousin John also writes, printing 14,000 cars would have taken hours on a dot matrix printer.
We don't know. It could have been. We don't know how much time passed before I saw that.
It was a few days. Yeah.
It could have been weeks.
And Larry looks like he's been bobbing for bananas.
I love that callback.
The chocolate fudge.
From the game show with the motor oil. Same thing. Yes.
Yes. And Cousin John always gives us a nice wrap up for this episode. He writes, this was a fun episode. It was a relatable situation for the most part. And once again, it was Larry's good intentions that mucked everything up.
Classic.
The final showpiece was realistic enough, saved the car self-destructing, and a nice payoff for the whole episode. Yep, agreed.
Yeah, I like when the car self-destructs because it's just like it has its own personality.
Yeah.
It almost has a life of its own.
So obviously it's like good. It was good enough when he brought it to the garage. He got
sold the lemon. It was just good enough for them to drive it off the lot.
Down,
yes.
Then they fixed it. Then it broke down again.
Yeah. It's great.
Finally, we have Cousin Laura who writes, why would they both need a car in Chicago anyway?
That's a good point.
I lived in Chicago for 10 years and only got a car after 7 years when I got a job out in Hoffman Estates. I lived in Lincoln Square. They work in the Loop, so there should be plenty of CTA options, you'd think. I'm surprised Larry didn't explain to Balky about the cost savings of public transportation.
Balky, you got to take the bus.
You know, I don't know.
Chicago is a pretty accessible city in certain places if you don't have a car.
But it doesn't work well.
New York is better.
New York, DC. I just moved back to Chicago from DC. DC, you really, a car is helpful in some situations depending on where you need to go, but you can really get by. I got by there like 10 plus years without a car. In Chicago, here's the thing. The L was constructed when Chicago was just around the Loop. So it's good if you're in that area, but it's a massive city and there is still public transport, but it
spiders out for the L, but there are big gaps in between.
And
but
it's not the most efficient or fast.
Well, here's how I think about it. Like New York, the subway train in New York will get you everywhere. It's damn near perfect. Chicago, you have to employ a combination of train to bus, train.
Yes.
It's either train, bus, train,
and it
bus,
takes
train,
2 hours
bus.
to get anywhere.
Takes forever.
Yeah.
Yes, but it can be done. It just takes a long time.
And half the year you're on elevated platforms in the frigid cold.
Yes, where the heaters sometimes are on or
with
not.
Flickering heat lamps. Yeah. But who knows what, I mean, in 1989, maybe it was working better or it was more efficient. Who knows? We don't know like what neighborhood they live in. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's a fake street in LA. I mean, it's a real street, but it's in LA. It's not in.
We know they work in the Loop,
in Chicago.
We don't know.
But I think, look, it's a pretty. I think Chicago, if you pick a right place to live and work, you really don't need a car.
Yeah, but again, like this is a valid question. Why do they
only have a car? Why do they need two?
But the point is, as we just said, for an immigrant who's been working for a few years, it's a big deal. He just wanted, like, it was a big deal for him to get a driver's license. And then now he just wants to own a car, his own car.
This is why our pollution is worse now, 33 years later.
Yes.
Also, gas prices were much cheaper then. Well, we do that, Pia.
I mean, he saved $2,500 for a car. That's
impressive.
Very cheap.
But does he still have the bank account? What happened to the bank account? What happened to his checks? That money should have been in the bank. What are you doing carrying it around in the meat?
No, he said he cashed out his savings account. Yeah.
He still had the bank account from season 1 or 2.
He didn't need to cash out the savings account, though. He could have used checks.
He could have used Maposian gold.
Dig does.
Don't be ridiculous was not said this episode.
Oh, no.
Of course I have. Don't be ridiculous.
But guess who's back?
Dimitri's back. I noticed this right at the beginning.
It was perfectly because it was between them in one shot, perfectly placed.
And I got so excited.
Where was he doing? What was happening?
So no costume. It's just Dimitri back on the shelf behind them in the apartment. But in front of Dimitri is a bright red toy car.
There's a little red car. Dimitri's own little red car.
Yes.
It was really good to see Dimitri. That's why, look, this episode had everything.
We missed Dimitri.
It had Dimitri.
Now we are at the segment of our show that we call Perfect Strangers Today or PS Today, in which we talk about if we were to redo this story today, how would things be different? I think a lot of things would be different for this episode. Buying a car is different now.
Researching, buying, and the whole process is, there's still dealerships and there's lots, but there's
You
things
still have
like
to do research,
Yes.
but it's an easier process now.
it's way easier.
CarMax.
So his dot matrix sheet is now filters that you
Yes.
just you're like,
On a
show me
website.
all red cars at 5
Yeah.
miles with this much miles under this price. Boom, it's up like that.
automated.
Right?
You don't have to do it by hand.
You
anymore.
can have a
Yeah.
car, you can order a car on the
And it'll be
internet and
delivered.
literally deliver it
Yeah.
to your front door. That's wild. The Carvana has vending machines. Literal, like
You don't
futuristic
have to cash
car
out. You don't need a
vending
a sack of cash. You
Yeah.
can just press a button and buy a car.
Oh, yeah. You can also just go boop.
Yeah.
And they didn't really there wasn't any haggling. Like, usually it's also people haggle
Well,
the price.
That's because we already had that in another episode.
But there's no more haggling over car prices.
Even at used car dealerships.
Even at the dealership, the thing is, because of what CarMax has started, where they're like, the price is the price.
Yeah.
That's it. A lot of places now, they're like, this is the price. Because if it isn't, you can easily look up, be like, well, this place is lower, right?
Yeah.
And give me this deal. So, everything is, it's weird. But then fixing a car is a little bit different. I'm not the most mechanical guy.
I've actually never even bought a car yet.
Oh, yeah.
In my life.
Of yourself.
Of my own. Yeah. I've just acquired them.
I will say I can change a tire pretty quickly. I've never changed my own oil, but I hear it's easy to do on some cars. The problem now is cars used to be all mechanical, right?
Yeah.
They are literally half computers. You are driving a computer. So you can't fix the mechanical parts because there are sensors. There's just computer sensors that go out.
Yeah.
You can't replace that. You got to take it into the thing. They got to reboot the thing. It's a whole scam these
It's like
days.
the Apple Store of cars.
It is exactly. I mean, the Tesla car drives itself now.
Yeah.
You can't fix that.
So this is not for PS Today, but if we had a segment called PS Tomorrow, we could do this whole
PS
show
Tomorrow.
with self-driving cars or flying Jetsons cars or something. PS Tomorrow.
You could do a thing where the Carvana car drives itself over. There's nobody in it, and then you get in, and then it gets the car will get hacked.
Yeah.
You need to be a coder to fix your car now. You can't.
Yeah,
just
but what about the Appleton system? Would that still?
Oh, the
hold
Appleton
up?
rating system. I would have. Well, see.
Well, that would be just CarMax. Well, no, because you still have to know what filters you want to look at. That's where the system.
Appleton used car system. I don't know if that would be. You would need that anymore because you just you can see exactly what you want.
We definitely don't have dot matrix printers anymore.
Like the whole him trying to help Balky find the best car. You could do that, but the way you do it would be different.
Yeah.
And then the car can even buy. It's hard to buy a lemon because there's Carfax. Now you're like, show me the Carfax. You have a report of every accident, every time the car had an oil change.
Yeah.
Like if you get stuck with a lemon this day and age, I don't know what to tell you. I do love old clunker cars. I had a couple of old cars.
Yeah.
I had one old Honda hatchback. It was like an 87 Honda hatchback. So the battery was not attached to anything. It was just kind of sitting in its thing, right? So occasionally when I would stop hard at a traffic light, say, the thing would slide forward, the terminal would get loose, the whole car would shut off.
Oh my
and
God.
I'd have to hook it out and then put the car back. And not only that, I had the same problem. There was a hole in one of the coolant pumps, and at the stoplight, just smoke would start coming from this car over and over again. And I'm like, that's what I get when I buy an $800 car from 20
you
years
bought it for $800.
It was $800.
Yeah.
It was an 87. This is early 2000s.
Cheaper than Balky's car.
Yes. Oh, it was very cheap. But that's what happened. So it kind of reminded me of that Honda Accord I had.
Okay. So I think, the premise would hold up and the execution would be a little bit different.
You could have some fun with the new cars and the self-driving cars and in the cruise control where you just car, home, and then you just sit back and you cross your arms. I don't think it works like that, but it should. We're getting there. We're not there. We'll be there soon.
PS Tomorrow. That's going to be
tomorrow.
That's going to be our new segment.
It's a future
PS
segment.
Tomorrow. Okay.
We'll record it yesterday.
Yes.
How does that work? Yeah. What do we got going next week, sister?
Next week, we get to see Larry in drag.
Ooh la la. I love little Bosom Buddies action.
Bosom
Remember
Buddies
that
throwback.
show?
Loved
Peter
that
Sklar,
show.
Tom Hanks, dressed as women.
Yeah.
Larry dressed as a woman. Why would he possibly be dressing as a woman?
Join us next
You're gonna have
week
to tune in.
to find out.
In the meantime, listener, if you enjoy our in shenanigans and tangents and love and recapping of Perfect Strangers, you can support the show by buying us a virtual coffee. Visit our website, danceofjoypod.com/support. You can throw a couple of digdas our way, buy us some coffee. All of it goes back into creating the show, keeping it running. We have to say huge thank you to some people this week, sister.
Yes, big shout out and thank you to Brandon and Molly who bought us a coffee.
Get out of the city!
That's amazing. Thank you, Brandon, Molly.
Thank you. And they left us this lovely note. We are both big fans of your podcast. I grew up on Perfect Strangers and we binge the show almost every day. My wife, Molly, has to deal with my random renditions of Fresh Young Balky Bee.
Oh, we haven't got there yet.
And the Meposian Litany of Truth.
Oh, we haven't got there either, have we? No.
The catchphrases from the show are almost a daily thing with us since I introduced her to it last year. You guys are awesome, and thanks for making a great show. We love it. Oh, my gosh.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you so much, Brandon and Molly, for these lovely words. And I love that you are both enjoying this show together.
And it's, they sound like they're our generation. Obviously, we grew up loving the show as well. And there's a lot of people that are now like, oh, I used to love the show. And they're catching on. So this is great. Get more people to watch the show and more people to listen to this podcast.
We appreciate
This
you,
is so
Brandon
nice.
and Molly.
Great.
Thank you
Lovely
so
comments.
much. That is our show for today. We hope you join us again next week. In the meantime, please visit our website, danceofjoypod.com. There you can find all the links to where you can find our podcast, listen to our podcast, rate and review our podcast. You can also press a button right there on the main website and leave us a voice message if you'd like to send us a message or tell us about your first car or your own used car rating system. We'd love to hear it. You can also send us an old-fashioned email about any of that at danceofjoypod@gmail.com. Also on our website are the links to all of our social media pages. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Please follow us on all of those. But Imran, what is the most important thing our listeners should do?
Always wear a jumpsuit when you're working on your car. I don't know. It keeps the grease off. No, the most important thing is to share this show with your network of friends, listener.
Yes, share it with your mechanics. Share it
with the
your
dude at Jiffy Lube when you go to take the car. That's the
share
other
it
thing.
with
You know,
the
you just go to
jumpsuit
Jiffy Lube.
salesman.
Share it with Honest Ahmed. Yes, and that camel that he kisses.
Share it with everyone. Share the love. Share Dance of Joy Pod as well as Perfect Strangers itself. And that is it for us today. And now we are so happy.
Now we are so happy we do the dance of joy!
Hey, 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 hey.